right, good afternoon, everyone, and a good morning, of course, to our colleagues on the West Coast. My name is Deanna Fenton, Program Manager here at the Alliance, and I'm thrilled to welcome you to today's special innovation webinar highlighting successful remote workforce models that have been implemented by our OPO colleagues at Lifegift and our transplant colleagues over at Massachusetts General. Now, before I go ahead and turn the floor over to our moderator, I would like just to take the next minute or so reviewing a few key reminders and notes regarding today's program. For those of you who are joining us for the very first time today, we ask that you take note of the Q&A feature that's located in the bottom of your Zoom navigation bar. All of your questions for our presenters should be submitted here. Now, for those of you who submitted questions during the registration process, please know that we've done our best to compile your questions and we'll have our speakers address them throughout the course of today's presentation. Now, should you have any additional questions, please feel free to go ahead and submit them in that Q&A box. Once the presentation has concluded, we'll go ahead and transition into our Q&A discussion, where our presenters will address as many of your questions as time allows. Now, for those of you who are joining us as a group today, please take note of the following poll that I'm launching. If you are participating in a group, we ask that you complete this poll to indicate approximately how many people have joined your respective group. Your responses will help us and our panel presenters gauge the level of participation and engagement in today's program. Now, for anyone interested in our upcoming webinars, please note that registration is currently open for our next donation-focused webinar, which will highlight donor management snags and how to overcome unique challenges impacting OPOs. You can tune in for that on April 6th at 2 p.m. Eastern. Additionally, registration is open for our next transplant-focused webinar on leveraging innovation and patient engagement in pediatric transplantation. We encourage you to join us for that on April 27th at 3 p.m. Eastern. For more information on either program or to stay up to date on any of our upcoming programs, please visit our website at organdonationalliance.org. Now, following the conclusion of today's program, as always, you're all eligible to claim continuing education credits. For this webinar, we are offering 1 CEPC credit and 1 nursing contact hour. And of course, for those of you who may be seeking CEs that are not being offered, we are also offering a certificate of attendance that can be claimed as well. Now, prior to receiving your credits and certificates, you will be asked to complete a brief online evaluation that will give you an opportunity to provide us with your valuable feedback. If you happen to be listening in a group, please be sure to get the evaluation email from your group lead. As a friendly reminder, you'll have 30 calendar days to complete your evaluations and claim your credits. Now, without further ado, we'll go ahead and begin today's program by introducing our moderator, Matthew Wingler, Clinical Resource Lead at Lifeline of Ohio. Matt, thank you so much for joining us today. At this point, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks again, Deanna, for having me. It's always a pleasure to work with the team at the Alliance. I'm really excited for everybody to join us today on this webinar and excited to introduce all of the staff who've worked diligently to put this presentation together. So without further ado, let me introduce starting Michelle Gilbert with Lifegift in Houston, Texas. She is the Senior Director of Communication, Center for Donation. And Michelle's a certified tissue banking specialist that has over 25 years of experience in donation and transplantation. Our next speaker is Becky Mckay. She is currently serving as the Director of Human Resources of Lifegift, where she feels humbled and honored to be part of such an incredible organization and industry. Becky has been with Lifegift for almost 1.5 years and feels that Lifegift is the best organization and opportunity for which she has served in her career. Becky's honored to contribute to Lifegift's mission of hope. She is passionate about contributing in all areas of her human resource management expertise, along with coaching leaders and team members, inspiring them to contribute above and beyond what is expected in their job by contributing with a heart of service. This empowers an outcome of additional talent and abilities that inspire loyal team members and leaders who are passionate about what they do each and every day and the positive difference they make. And our final speaker from Lifegift is Kristine Browning. She comes with over 14 years experience in quality assessment, performance improvement, and regulatory compliance for transplantation. She has facilitated preparedness for 24 successful regulatory surveys. Regulators including OPTN, UNOS, CMS, both state and contract surveyors, TJC and DNV for hospital accreditation, and VAD's disease-specific care certification. Kristine has served on the OPT and UNO State Advisory Committee since August of 2018, as well as participating in several work groups. She joined Lifegift in March 2nd of 2020 as Senior Director of Quality and Regulatory Compliance, managing Lifegift's quality assurance and performance improvement process, compliance with applicable regulatory requirements and policies for both organ and tissue recovery services across the organization's service areas, as well as business intelligence. Kristine transitioned the entire quality system team of 19 members to virtual work in March 2020 due to COVID. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Michelle to get us started and give us their perspective.
Thank you, Matt, for the introduction. I thought I would start, for those of you who are not familiar, with just a little bit about Lifegift. We are one of 3 OPOs in Texas. Our population base is almost 12 million, and we service over 200 hospitals and 109 counties in Texas. We have 3 office locations. Our corporate office is in Houston, and we also have satellite offices in Fort Worth and Lubbock, and we employ approximately 300 individuals. When we started this journey with COVID, you know, you've probably heard some Texans say, this isn't our first rodeo, or this ain't our first rodeo. You know, at Lifegift, we had a lot of opportunities over the years to implement our business continuity plan. So we've been through hurricanes, flooding, snow and ice storms out in the West, tornadoes. And we then came into the pandemic, and it was something that we wondered how our business continuity plan would hold up with a very different scenario, kind of one of those unknown unknowns that we really hadn't given a lot of thought to. We decided as an organization to take the virtual leap, and the department that I represent, the Communication Center for Donation especially, we needed to do this because even though we qualified as essential workers, we had some limitations that would actually put people at risk. So first of all, we had shared workstations within our department and with other departments as well. And so we had 6 to 7 cubicles that people would sit at and to work. And so, you know, there would be an opportunity for exposure if we continued with bringing people into that office. We also shared the entire workspace with another department that has similar duties with being on the phone a lot. We talked a lot about wanting to avoid quarantine for our staff because if they're working from home, if they're not ill, then they could quarantine without technically missing work opportunities. And when we made this decision, we knew that school was already going to be canceled for the foreseeable future. And we were hoping that this would help reduce childcare staffing issues as well, which it did. This is a timeline for Lifegift of how COVID unfolded in our service area. We took our first COVID death referral, or suspected, because we didn't have testing at that time, on March 4th. And it was very slow, we started our first surge, it started with 1 a day and then, moved up from there. We had our first business continuity meeting on March 6th. So we were trying to stay ahead of things. On March 16th, so 10 days later, schools started to close and move to virtual learning after spring break. And so most of the schools in the area had spring break on the same week, and they decided that they would not be going back to school after that. That made it a really big impact to our staff. And on March 19th, Lifegift and our Communication Center for Donation decided to try to transition everyone to virtual prior to this, but on March 19th, the Communication Center was 100% virtual. So you can see this unfolded very, very quickly. That was also the day that Harris County, which is where Houston is located, closed non-essential businesses. And then on March 31st, so at the end of the month, we had a statewide closure of non-essential businesses. This, like in many of your communities as well, happened very, very quickly. So the big question that came our way was, how did we do this? And the first was that we already had a lot of preparation in place. Like I said, we had implemented our business continuity plan multiple times over the years. And we also, in the Communication Center for Donation, we have a virtual staffing model already in place because we take 100% of our death referrals. We do not have any type of backup provided. So I'll talk a little bit about this more, but we already had a virtual staffing model that suited us very well. We also had a lot of IT support, and including a cloud-based phone system and our EMR software that was cloud-based. And like most situations, there's always the thing that you can't prepare for. So sometimes that works in your favor, and sometimes it doesn't. In our case, we did have a little luck with us. So Lifegift started our virtual staffing model back in 2016. And at any given time for the Communication Center, we have nearly half of our staff that works out of the state of Texas. And you can see here in this map, we have folks in Iowa, Missouri, Ohio, Virginia, Mississippi, and Florida. We also have people who live outside of the Houston metro area, like in Dallas. And even though we already had this virtual staffing model in place, there came a lot of questions from other departments and also internally with our management of the department about, well, what if people's dogs bark? What if their cat, bugs them? What if they are homeschooling their children, or if they have a child that they can't find childcare for? We do have one person who also, their pet of choice is a bird. And so these questions came up, and I will be very honest, I am not a micromanager in any way, shape, or form. And so these things are something that, first of all, yes, these will all happen. However, it's important that you set expectations with the staff, and then you trust them to move forward and do what they need to do to fulfill their job responsibilities. So when we talked with the staff about this, we talked about having a quiet and private work environment. They shouldn't be taking referral calls in front of their children. They shouldn't be taking referral calls in front of their family. They should try to be isolated. To a certain degree. I do have one person who transformed her master bedroom closet into her office because she didn't really have any other place, and she absolutely loves it. We talked about their equipment because, a lot of people had only used equipment in the office, and talked about, needing to use it for work only, not let their children play games on their computers and things like that. And then to be careful with food and drink, of course. Breaks and lunch, there was really no difference, and availability was no different. If they're in the office or at home, their availability needs to be the same. And we do have the ability to monitor unanswered calls and delays in calls through our phone system. So that was something that made it easy to monitor without being overbearing. And as far as IT support, we were very fortunate that we had the availability of laptops and monitors and printers that we could send home with folks. And we did have our IT team do some testing of internet connectivity because not everyone has the best internet connectivity. We did have a couple of people who needed to upgrade their provider. We also had a lot of software that was already in the cloud, which kept us from needing to VPN into the Office network, because that's something that is a little bit unstable sometimes. So any little hiccup can upset the VPN connection. We already had Office 365 in place. Our electronic medical record, iTransplant, is in the cloud. Our phone system was in the cloud, our scheduling, and our time accounting. So all of these things did not require any specific type of connection into the Office. And we did need network access only for a couple of pieces of software, like our quality monitoring software, QPulse, and our internal reporting. And of course, like I said, it did take a little bit of luck. We had already made plans for flexibility for our local staff. They had been asking for a long time. We have people who work from home in other states. Why can't we work from home too? So we had already done a pilot program for them to prove the concept. And we had already budgeted and ordered our laptops and monitors. And all of our local employees had the ability to obtain good internet service. So this went very well. We had just upgraded our phone system as well. So we made it to the cloud with that just in time. So I thought I would start with some things that really didn't go very well, and end on a positive note of the things that went very well during this transition. The first thing that needed work was communication. And of course, you know, our title of our department is the Communication Center. However, there was a lot of information that was coming out very quickly, and changes that were happening with our tissue processors and criteria, and changes with the hospitals and how they were handling COVID. So we decided to implement pre-shift huddles, and we still do this now. It's a year later, and we're still doing pre-shift huddles. We meet at 6 a.m., 10 a.m., and 6 p.m. And we just give them an update for their shift, if there's anything new that has come out. And this has really worked very well to keep the team connected without overwhelming them with a lot of email communication. We also needed to work on our connection because we felt connected to the folks that were in the office, and we made special accommodations to make sure we were connected with the folks that were out of the office, but now we were all virtual and remote. So we made it mandatory for all of our Teams meetings that the staff have their video available and on. We told them, we don't care what your hair looks like, you know, just you know, show us your face and interact with us. We also created pods, and these were, and we're still meeting in this form. And these pods are peer-led groups, and there's no supervisors or managers that are part of the pods. And then this gives them a specific group of people to create bonds with, that it's over multiple shifts. So they're not just meeting with the people that they work with on an everyday basis. And they really like it. This has really given them the freedom to talk about things that are on their mind, and to create some relationship with their coworkers. We also just continued with our regular staff meetings, our manager check-in with each individual staff member, and our regular coaching sessions that we had already implemented pre-COVID. We also wanted to provide some mental health support. So, you know, we knew and have experienced, you know, increased mortality rate, personal loss during this time, both COVID and non-COVID. And so we offered spiritual support and EAP, of course, to our team. And, you know, our management team is available to anyone at any time that wants to talk. One of the logistic issues that we ran into was our equipment, because even though we had ordered equipment, we did still need to repurpose some equipment from the office. And that left a lot of our cubicles empty. It was also really difficult to track the equipment that was handed out because it happened so quickly due to the urgency of the situation that, you know, we had to kind of go back and determine who took what and where all of our equipment was. And then, like I talked about earlier, is that not everyone had a dedicated space to work from for a home office. And so, you know, people came up with, you know, different ways of handling this, but it is all worked out very well for everyone. I have not had anyone who has decided to work in the office versus at home. And the things that went really well for Lifegift during this time is that the team members really adjusted easily. They wanted this change prior to COVID. So, you know, this is something that they were ready for. Their job satisfaction also improved, especially because of the commute time. Pretty much anywhere you live in the Houston area, you're going to spend 30 minutes to an hour and a half on the road to get to the office. So, you know, whenever you start your shift at 6 a.m., you're leaving your house at 5, you know, they were very happy to have that time back. And the team knew that Lifegift was concerned about their safety as well. So this gave them a lot of confidence in Lifegift as an organization, knowing that we cared. And along with this, we did see less call outs in our communications center because some days you don't come to work because you just don't feel like, you know, getting up and getting around, getting in the car. And so, you know, we saw that a lot of people who might have called in, you know, that didn't feel well enough to come to the office to work, felt well enough to stay at home and work. And so those were all very beneficial for Lifegift and for our department. And the gold star, really, of all of this was our ability to implement remote training. I did not think that this could happen. I will not lie. The supervisors of our department, they did an incredible job of pulling together our remote training program. We had never trained anyone remotely, even if they had experience in donation. So they took our LMS and really developed the materials that we needed. We had a lot of current training resources on SharePoint. They made sure that all 3 of the supervisors had access to that so that no matter who was training, we had uniformity across all 3 of the trainers. And they were all using now the same materials, which they weren't doing necessarily while we were in the office. We used both recorded and live examples for people. So this really forced us to get creative with how we modeled the referral process and how we trained people to take that referral and be on the phone. So we you know, accessed our recorded referrals and really were able to utilize those very well to help train people instead of sitting them with someone and shadowing them. We utilized the screen sharing with Teams, which that really helped because we were able to show people and see what they were doing as well. And our supervisors really shared that we're able to share the training workload better because they weren't really bound as much by their shifts. So that is all for my presentation. I'm going to turn it over to Kristine Browning, and she'll talk about her experience.
Thank you, Michelle. That was awesome. I really need to take your lessons learned on the virtual onboarding training. Let me make sure it's not going forward. Okay. All right. So a year ago, we thought we were going to be in this for 3 weeks. And essentially, it's been over a year and we're continuing. We have had to have a lot of resilience and be incredibly innovative, which has really given us a new platform to have high productivity and happy employees. Per Fortune, they said 1/3 of workers don't ever want to actually return to work that have actually switched over to remote working. So my team, Quality Systems Department, consists of 3 different areas, which is quality assurance, where we're actually reviewing and ensuring all the charts have the right information and that there's no discrepancies for the tissue processors as well as for the organ, as well as our patient safety coordinators. Our performance improvement, of course, is involved all the projects and facilitation and our business intelligence. So for our team, it was actually relatively simple as the platform because we didn't have direct care. We were not in a clinical realm that we could actually go virtual when this came up. And we really wanted to protect our employees and reduce the amount of people in the office. It was really about distance, not having potential encounters. So we made the decision that this was right for our team, our entire department to do this. The fortunate thing was performance improvement and business intelligence was actually already set up with virtual capabilities. They had VPN and what have you. Our quality assurance team had actually done a very, they had initiated a project, a PI project in 2019. So a few of them actually had been working from home like 1 day a week, but they were still using their own personal equipment at home and they weren't fully set up with all capabilities, but they were doing some. So what happened is we really had to make an effort to make it possible for them to actually function at home and have everything that they need. So we, the PI project helped some of them out with this, but really it was about ensuring that they had everything, that they had both monitors. These are people that are looking at 2 or 3 different things at once and comparing to ensure there's no discrepancies. They need to have that ability as well as uploading documents for patient safety. So having those 2 screens makes such a difference for your functionality. So we basically sent everybody home. They actually all had desktops. They had to switch over. And fortunately, IT managed to miraculously find all these laptops in a time when there weren't that many, switch them over. They got their laptops there. They got their 2 monitors. They got a keyboard and they were sent home to work. We did have a few people that were a little bit resistant to actually changing over. But in the end, I'll be able to show you that this actually really worked out for them. We did have to have a few employees needed hotspots because they didn't actually have Wi-Fi. So this is not moving forward. I can't get it to move forward for some reason. Oh, oops. Okay. All right. So one of the biggest things was actually going completely paperless. We had to do this as much as possible. Our teams deals with piles and piles of 300 plus records coming through the fax machine and huge medical records that they need to go through and upload and provide to tissue processors. And so really it was about ensuring that they had the software. So it became very early that they didn't all have Adobe Pro access. They had it on their desktop, but not the laptop. And so we actually had to issue licenses for all of them for Adobe Pro so they could manipulate to the charts, upload them accordingly. It also gave us a platform to be able to do signatures and signing off on items that were necessary, such as check requests, which is really about our process and our flow. So yes, it was really hard as well for us to adjust to the faxing component. Pure Cloud, which was our web-based version that we had version of a web-based phone, actually had the capability for faxing. And so I got IT to do a pilot with a couple of the employees, and then they were able to test receiving records from the hospitals and our referring facilities through the Pure Cloud as a fax. And it's the same phone number, it just identifies as a fax. So that actually has worked out really well. The only limitation is that the page acceptance level is 300. Utilizing Teams, and also like we created a team site where you can share things, as well as our patient safety coordinators moved everything to Teams for their culture tracking and COVID reporting. So that also created that environment to ensure that we were completely paperless. So I did not send people home with printers. I didn't want them printing things in their home with a PHI. And so we really encouraged them to just maintain as paperless as possible. Some of the things that really made a difference in this, I will say that it was basically, I had 1 week with my brand new team before we went virtual. So I really did not have much of an opportunity to get to know them. So it really became important for me to get to know my staff and build a relationship. And so staying connected, engaged, communication really is the key. Having that high level of transparency from the leadership and support from leadership. So I initiated meetings with my staff twice a week. So that we could actually have share hacks, what works, what doesn't, and have a little bit of a social moment of that you'd normally have by the water cooler. I tried to be as open book as possible with them. I also wanted to instill in them my trust in them and providing their ability to have flexibility in the timing of when they're working, that they didn't have to actually work from the specified routine time, that they could work according to what worked for them, and trusting and understanding that there are sometimes some blurred lines, acknowledging that there may be times that they need to leave work to handle personal matters. But I wanted to make sure I also communicated and set expectations on tasks and deadlines. So really it's about being flexible. And I think this also allowed the ability to maintain the connection to the mission and the organization. So one of the things I also found is it's really important to be asking how people are doing and making sure that they have the opportunities that they can to communicate with each other. So one of the things that I adopted in my check-ins, because what I found is that we would start our half-hour session and no one was really talking or sharing anything. And then all of a sudden it would be like, okay, well, if we're done, we'll close out the meeting. And then all of a sudden everyone starts talking and they all want to share. So I stole what we initiated, our communication center initiated with our organization, is that every Friday they send out this Feel Good Friday newsletter to our partners. And I adopted the feel good story. So come to the meeting if you want to share a story. It could be as simple as, my nephew got on a baseball team, my niece made the band, anything that was just to enlighten and bring, inspire and share what's going on with everyone's lives. Also, I created work from home, or what we called QS team challenges or COVID challenges. And so almost every meeting we would have a challenge. And so my team is particularly big foodies and they usually have many potlucks. So we started sharing what we were cooking at home, what we were eating. We shared about what our workplace looks like, what it's when we started. You saw that a little bit earlier. But we are still doing these check-ins to this day. We just did a foodie challenge, which is, I think, our third one since we've started this on Monday. I also, one of my favorite activities was Two Truths and a Lie. This really allowed me to actually get to know the staff, my team, so much better, as well as everyone getting to know each other as we started to onboard more people. So what are the challenges? For performance improvement, this was a major challenge. We had just completed the week before we shut down a huge value stream mapping in our organ operation, clinical operations, the first portion of referral. And it went incredible. All those people in the room with all their Post-it notes, sharing everything. It was an incredible value stream mapping, as well as our PR department had just completed value stream mapping with HR. But when it came down to it, how are we able to do this in a way, in such a large, cross-organizational activities and needing people to come from all over to participate? My manager had actually tried several different ways on Teams, using the whiteboard on Teams. There were some limitations. And to be honest, we had so many PI projects from those value streams. It was over 30 that we're still kind of closing those out, and we're getting ready to hopefully value stream again, but we have not. We found some platforms to possibly use, and I'm excited to hear what Paul's going to share about that. Michelle mentioned about virtual onboarding and how great that's gone for her. So I really need to learn from her. I do know that LIFT, which is our Lifegift Institute for Future of Transplantation with our LMS, has been incredible in creating that environment for onboarding. But once we get to that stage where the preceptoring is a little more challenging for my team, so we're still working through that, but we've actually brought staff back in the office just to do some of that preceptoring. One of the things that's really important is ensuring the self-care, not allowing people to work over. What I found is more people are working longer hours and they're blurring those lines. So you want to make sure that they're actually have a separate office space, as Michelle had mentioned, that they try to set some regular office hours, that they're taking short breaks throughout the day. And that, like for me, I needed to set a trigger to say, okay, this is the end of the day. I need to walk away from my desk and not go back if I can. And Zoom fatigue, lately there have been a lot of articles released about Zoom fatigue, that this is really, truly a true thing. It's exhausting, it's proven by science. And so being aware, and so what I did was I used to have twice a week check-ins, and now I've really gone to once a week. I don't want the check-in to become something else that's part of their workload. I want it to be fun. So did this really work? Is it working? Are we successful? Yes, because productivity has gone up significantly. This is looking at our quality assurance team and their days to closure on the left. And you can see in 2019 in the blue bar to 2020, we actually reduced overall days for tissue closure by 34% and then for organ by 18. And then this year, even more so, there's even much more productivity, and we dropped 53% to, tissue to close, as well as for organ 48%, which is pretty incredible. To me, this is absolute success. This time last year, we still had a percentage of charts still open from 2019. And in February, we had closed out all of 2020 charts. So the work is great. This means that we are actually getting our tissue processors their data quickly. The quality has been reported by tissue processors very high, and they're just exceptionally happy with how quickly we're being able to do this. So we're making everyone happy. In August last year, our communications department actually sent out an internal survey to all our staff. You know, how connected do you really feel to your manager? These are important things that we want to make sure. That you know, they feel connected. And I think this is pretty reflective of some good data here, showing how high that the rating of 4, that they do feel connected to their manager, as well as how do you feel connected to your team? There's still a high level of connection to your team. Well, I had also internally gone ahead and actually surveyed my own team back in June last year about how it was going with work from home. I really wanted to know how they were feeling, how they were doing. So June of 19 is the blue bar saying, you know, what are the best things about working from home? And commute, no traffic. I will say almost 40% of my staff had more than an hour one-way commute. And they were coming in at 4 o'clock in the morning just to avoid traffic. And so now they get so much time back into their day. Again, it's about giving them flexibility. They have decreased expenses. They feel like they're much more productive. They have a lot less distractions. They actually get to have bonding time with their family, their pets. They have time to take care of themselves and their health. So what do they find the biggest challenge is the social isolation. We know that we need human connection. So this is going to be an ongoing struggle. But as you see, last June, they reported it at a higher level of challenge, whereas now it's much lower. Overall, you can see on the right for none was the biggest number of that. They didn't have any, which is 31% of them said they had no challenges about working from home. And I will say 100% of them reported that they actually had created a dedicated workspace for themselves. Looking a little further, are they satisfied with their current work-life balance? I can't deny these numbers are incredible. 84% actually reported that they enjoy working from home a great deal. And then on the right, you can see there's actually an increase of from last year, June to March of this year, 76% of them reported that it's much better now. So they've really adjusted and they really like their environment. These are healthy, this is a healthy, happy team. They enjoy working at Lifegift, 92.3%, pretty incredible, I say. And the other actually is words cannot express how much I like it. I love it. So I don't know what else to say about that. That's pretty incredible. So what are we looking at for the future? Are we going to go back? Will we go back? We have been so successful with our team, and because of the work and the nature that they do, it's a very good platform that shows that they can be healthy, they're happy, they feel successful, they're getting what they need. And so we are actually looking at a hybrid model moving forward. You're starting to see these things in the news about different hybrids, like Google, Microsoft, and Walmart have all just recently reported that they're going to institute hybrid work models. And I believe for our quality systems, we are evaluating, and in our new space that we're building, to actually have a hybrid role. One of the things that we're looking at is what's called hot desking or desk hoteling. And I'm really on the realms of desk hoteling, where you actually book your cubicle space or your desk space, and you check in and you have a standardized assignment. You bring your laptop to work, you just dock in, you have access to everything. Hot desking is where you just come free, unassigned, and it's first come, first serve, which can be more issues. So in the New York Times just this morning, they released, here comes hot desks and Zoom rooms. So it's pretty interesting stuff, but this is where we're going. I really think that we have been successful, and again, incredibly innovative to actually be pushed to this level to see how successful and happy our employees can be. Okay, I'm going to Send it on to Becky. Okay. Uh-oh. I'm sorry. I have to figure out how to send this on to Becky. I don't know how to send it. I'm sorry. Deanna, can you help me send it on to?
Becky, you're welcome to take it away.
Thank you. I'm so sorry.
No problem.
Technical difficulties.
So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Michelle and Kristine. What an innovative team we have. With that, I would like for you to consider a thought. And I'm not seeing how to progress. It looks like, Deanna, I think you have control.
You can just go ahead and click on the slides, but I'm happy to do that for you. There you go.
Okay, so I'd like for you to consider this statement. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. What? And so think about that as we go through this presentation. So what I would like to share with you today is why culture eats strategy for breakfast and the importance of culture to inspire a successful workforce, and then why aligning organizational strategy with culture is important. How strategy aligned with culture results in a successful transition to a virtual workforce model. So as we know, as we have gone through the pandemic, we can have a strategic plan. We can have it organized and put together in every kind of way you can imagine. But the only way that that strategic plan is going to be successful is to have a team that is going to execute it. So what does it take to incentivize the team? So I don't know if any of you have ever worked for an organization that was very draconian or authoritative, and the strategic plan was amazing, but the strategic plan was able to go nowhere because the team was not on board. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today. So company culture is ever changing, as we know. Through the pandemic, our culture has changed. It's how a team responds to a crisis. It's how a CEO steps up in a crisis. And it's also how, as you've heard from Kristine and Michelle, how we provide coaching and mentoring to our team if a mistake is made. And the way I look at a mistake is it's a learning nugget. You know, if we make a mistake, we learn from it, we move forward. A strong culture expects the unexpected. And strategy is pre-planned, like I said, but again, it takes a team to execute it. And so culture eats strategy every time. So what is culture? What is organizational culture? I know most of you know what that is, but a simplistic definition is the collection of values, expectations, and practices that guide and inform the actions of all team members. And culture is critical to an organization. It also develops the traits necessary for business success. A collaborative culture is getting buy-in from the team members. So when team members feel a part of the collaborative efforts in forming a strategy, they become loyal team members. So it's the foundation of any organization. So with that, what is the importance of aligning strategy with culture? So I've mentioned some common strategic initiatives that organizations have, some of which Lifegift has, strategically communicating organizational goals with all team members, hiring and developing a diverse team. So our hiring practices are very important because we're looking for team members not only for the requirements of the position, but we're looking for team members that have passion, that have a sense of urgency, that are agile, that are flexible, that have perseverance, and that will step up beyond what's in their job description. And then another strategic initiative is regular meetings with leadership and staff to encourage collaboration. So again, getting buy-in from your team. A business continuity plan is so important, especially in a crisis. And then continuous training and learning opportunities. And I can't emphasize this enough. I mean, Michelle and Kristine have mentioned that as well, how important training and learning is for our organization. So how does that align with strategy? So as you can see, culture creates an ever-changing organizational culture of trust. Well, how did we get the trust? In our strategy, we collaborate in our leadership meetings. And so the more collaboration, the more buy-in the team has, the more the team trusts the culture. And so then are able to persevere through the most difficult of challenges. And then always focusing on the mission, goals, and values of the organization. And another important aspect is to always publicly recognize team members. You know, there is the saying to coach in private and praise in public, and I love that. So I am going to read through some communications. These are actual communications that we at Lifegift had from our leadership as we transition to a virtual workforce. So as you remember, the pandemic started in March. So March 16th, our Lifegift leadership emailed all staff and gave this communication. Employees affected by COVID-19 continue to get paid without depleting their sick or vacation time. All full-time employees are insured at 40 hours, part-time 20. So that was support given to our team in a time of crisis. The annual incentive plan presentations were held on 3/18 with clear communication of a successful 2019. Communication about countries that have a level 3 travel health notice. If you remember, people were traveling and we needed to communicate those precautions to our team. Communication that affects the COVID-19 virus was developing rapidly, and that Lifegift will need to be flexible to adapt practices to keep pace with changing circumstances. Again, being flexible, we hire team members that are flexible. Leadership to meet and communicate updates to all staff, and then staff was encouraged to continue to visit the Lifegift safety site. We have an intranet with a safety site which provided updates throughout. So I want you to notice in these communications the thread of consistency: communication, transparency, incentives, and support. So on April 7th, another communication was emailed out from our leadership. Clarification provided regarding the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. If you remember, the FFCRA went into effect and then was in effect through the end of the year, with modifications to pay practices outlined in leadership's email dated 3/16. So the communication that went out before was connected to this communication as well. And Lifegift remains committed to providing 40 hours of pay per week to full-time employees, as well as 20 hours for part-time. And then notifying everyone that there's going to be a Q&A session on Thursday, April 9th, encouraging staff to ask questions on the call. Again, transparency. And then the email ends with, "Thanks for all of your hard work. Stay safe and wash those hands." So again, communication. On 4/8, our Lifegift leadership emails all staff employee guidelines for communicating potential COVID exposure. So already working to keep our team safe. Again, the same consistency: communication, transparency, and incentives and support. On April 27th, another leadership communication went out, and it was communicated that Lifegift team has done a good job with this and learned significantly about working remotely. So we're reinforcing our team for doing a great job. Operational effectiveness is on par or better. And this is a huge win and lesson learned. So we celebrate our wins. Effective May 16th, Lifegift transitions back to regular pre-COVID-19 pay structure. But again, Lifegift supplements payroll for 9 weeks without the need for staff to apply sick or vacation. A big thanks is communicated to our Lifegift team for making this work, and special thanks to families and pets for tolerating our staff being home more than usual. So I read these out to you because these were actual communications that went to our team. And again, the consistency of communication, transparency, incentives, and support. So how does Lifegift align strategy with culture for a successful virtual workforce model? March and April 2020, at the beginning of the pandemic, the decision to work remotely occurred, just as Kristine and Michelle had shared. Our Lifegift Institute for the Future of Transplantation, which we call our LIFT team, and they are phenomenal, fast-tracked the implementation of new Microsoft learning management system. So we're already on pace for learning how to work in a virtual environment. So LIFT immediately implemented several courses to all of our staff, maximizing our effectiveness and safety working remotely. And so these are a list of some of the courses. So successfully working from home, what a concept, right? And then having a course to be able to teach us how to do that effectively. Microsoft Learning Pathways, there were 20 total courses in this series. And then coping with COVID. Lifegift Business Continuity Plan was also on our learning management system. And then Microsoft Teams, which ended up becoming our primary platform for all of our business processes, meetings, et cetera. And then, of course, FEMA, the Coronavirus Pandemic Response Preparedness and a Pandemic Exercise Starter Kit. So the training equipped us to move forward effectively in a virtual environment as early as March and April 2020, which I just think is amazing. And so I can share with you that Lifegift has a lot of levity. One of the things that we do a lot is make fun of ourselves. So if you remember, as we were moving towards a virtual environment, and I'm sure many of you can share in this, is there were all types of comments when you're trying to either log into the virtual team meeting or while you're in the virtual team meeting. And so Kevin had sent out this email to everyone, and this is his actual email, Kevin Meyer, our CEO of Lifegift. And he says, everyone, we have some surprises lined up tomorrow to make the call fun. Here is a little bingo board we can use tomorrow for us to see if we can hit bingo before end of meeting. We can look at this 2 ways. Either we really try and use 0 of these, or we can try and hit all of them, which we pretty much get close to every call. Enjoy and X off those boxes as we go. And thanks to Scott Brunner for the fancy artwork. Well, this was our handmade conference call bingo that we actually used. And so some of the comments that would be made that's on the card are things like, you're on mute, we can't hear you. Next slide, please. Or I've got a hard stop at. And then one of the really funny ones is I can hear you typing and somebody saying, it sounds more like a hammer to me. But again, we just had fun with this and made a game out of it. Again, bringing levity to meetings. So from a human resources standpoint, talent acquisition standpoint, as Kristine and Michelle have talked about, our onboarding process continued. And so March 23rd, our first virtual onboarding, we had 8 new team members. And so, you know, it was a little bumpy ride, the first one, but all of the new team members were amazing and appreciated the fact that they were able to onboard in a virtual environment. March and April, team members were issued laptops, as Kristine and Michelle have mentioned, in order to work from home. And then recruiting efforts were performed remotely. And then July to September, we continued with our virtual leadership development training on teams that was presented by our VP of HR, David Staley. And then in August of 2020, our first virtual CEO luncheon with staff. This is something that I think is just amazing, is we have a CEO who meets monthly with about 8 team members, and it's a variety of team members from the organization. And our goal is to have every team member be able to meet with Kevin in this luncheon. And it's a casual opportunity for team members to provide feedback, for Kevin to get to know the team members. And it's been awesome. We get feedback from that meeting that we also implement to help us improve. An average of 6 new team members join Lifegift each month from April to November, which I think is amazing. And then in December, oh my goodness, our biggest number of team members that joined were 13 in December of all months, one of the busiest months of the year. And so our total average head count of full-time and part-time team members was 260 to 265. Okay, I went forward instead of backward. Okay, so like I said, we have a lot of levity. And so we decided to have a virtual Halloween costume contest. And so as you can see, one of our presenters is in a costume. And we just had so much fun with this. It brought levity in a virtual environment, and the team loved it. I think one of the questions was team building. I think things like this can create an opportunity for a lot of team building. And so we had a lot of fun. These were some of the innovative costumes that we had as well. So we had pets, we had team member children. We even had one of our employees, little girls dressed like our chief medical officer, Dr. Wood, in the top left. Mustache included, which I thought was amazing. So another thing that I wanted to share as far as how Lifegift aligns strategy with culture is, as you all know, as an OPO, our mission of hope is so important. And so our core purpose and values are our mission of hope, being passionate, compassionate, and professional. And so I can say that in my time with Lifegift, this is also being carried over to our team members. We align all of our values, our culture, everything into what we provide to our team members. And so, like I mentioned, 9 weeks of pay for team members during COVID, annual incentives for performance goals, and then provided supplemental pay and opportunity for a vacation buyback during the recent winter blast to help with home repairs. And then again, as Michelle and Kristine had mentioned, mental health resources and support that is so important. And then continuous communication to ensure team members are safe and needs are met. So we truly do have compassion for our team members. So how does Lifegift align strategy with culture? I've just shared a few ways, but culture aligned with strategy provides virtual success. And so I wanted to end with this, that success is a journey. It is not a destination. And so the only way that we can, any of us, sustain success is to continue learning, continue developing and improving, and continuing to be the best organizations that we can be. And so I want to thank you for this opportunity, and then I'll turn it back over to Matt.
Okay, thank you so much for the presentation. That was absolutely fantastic. A lot of good information. And I did want to just let our audience know that we had originally planned to have Paul Myoung speak with us. He's the Senior Administrative Director of the Transplant Center, Division of Transplant Surgery and Mechanical Circulatory Support Program at the Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, Massachusetts. However, he did have a prior commitment. What we are going to do, I spoke with Deanna, and we are still going to include Paul's slides for everyone. That will be in the handouts. So you will have those. And if you have any questions directly for Paul and you forward those to Deanna and the Alliance group, we will make sure we get those. Paul's a great partner to transplant and donation, and I'm sure he would be more than happy to answer those questions for us. So with that, I'm actually going to transition over to our Q&A session. And it looks like we've had a few questions pop up here. We had some that were sent in ahead of time. I've been trying to keep track of those as we move through the presentation. Our team at Lifegift did a great job. We got these questions a couple days ago, and I think they were able to hit on the majority of these. But I am going to just ask a couple is for that they might be able to answer. One I have listed here is how do you train new remote coordinators? I don't know if someone wants to handle that one.
I can take that. So first of all, we start with an onboarding with our HR department, and it's typically 2 to 3 days, and that's been handled virtually through Teams. And once we transition the person to our department anyway, in the Communication Center for Donation, we have a very specific laid out plan of day 1, day 2, day 3, and we have our presentations, whether they're being given live or if they're going to be self-driven through the LMS system, they are all in the LMS system, and we stick to that training plan. If someone has experience, their training plan has been adjusted to account for the smaller amount of training time versus someone who doesn't have any experience. And we make sure that we have all of our resources in place for that training. We use Teams to do screen sharing, which also allows us to do sharing of sound as well. So they can listen to their preceptor, take referrals. They can listen to recordings of referrals. They get to practice on their own computer by listening to recordings or their preceptor and putting information into our training EMR system. And we move forward from there, and we make sure that we just check all the boxes, and we use our virtual tools like Teams and our LMS system really to the best of our abilities, knowing what types of things or what types of benefits each one of those programs can provide, and knowing how to use them very well has really allowed us to be successful with a virtual training program. And again, I really didn't think it would be possible, but the team has done an amazing job and has made a believer out of me.
Great, thank you. So we've had a couple questions pop up here. First one here from Chris Duckett. Becky, you mentioned the number of new people you were onboarding. What was your turnover rate in 2020? Is this higher or lower than 2019? I think that coincides with the second question from Victoria here that says, did you have any turnover or loss during this time? So.
I do not have those stats in front of me, but it was minimal. As you could see, our head count stayed within that 260 to 265 number. So it was minimal. I can get that for you if you would like.
Okay. All right. So any other questions from our audience? Got a few more here to take a look at. We have one that was sent in ahead of time that said, how can we ensure productivity from employees working in an unsupervised environment?
I can take that one. I think that my data showed a great example of the productivity. And so it comes down to their motivation, but also monitoring the productivity. So you're encouraging them and communicating with them. You're giving them tasks with deadlines and goals. And if they're not meeting those, then you need to reassess and identify what are the barriers. Do they have what they need? Is there something that's preventing them from being successful? So really it's about, you know, seeing the productivity. And for us, we can actually look at data and see what's being produced and the level of work that is being done. For me, I am, as Michelle mentioned, I'm not a micromanager. I want my staff to have the ability to be independent, be acknowledged for their independent role, and be successful.
If it's okay, I would like to add to that, along with what Kristine had said. What we have found in a collaborative environment, when you provide leverage for your team to grow in their positions, it's amazing how they will step up to the plate. Micromanaging tends to cause team members to withdraw. And what we have found is that our team has grown because of the leadership allowing them to grow in their positions. So it's really been the opposite of what you logically would think.
Great. Okay. And it looked like from you covered in the presentation there's quite a bit of this as far as engagement and team building. It looked like you guys are doing a great job. I love seeing all those images. But have you seen any difficulties with engaging virtually for those who aren't regular participators?
I think most of our teams have weekly meetings, one-on-one meetings with team members. And so I think that has been a great way to keep team members engaged. We also have a weekly all-staff meeting. That's for all staff. And so all updates organizationally are communicated there as well. So there's a lot of participation, collaboration, feedback, et cetera. So I feel like our team has many opportunities to participate.
Great.
I can just add to that, and you know, for having the work from home challenges, those really actually engage some of the staff that might not participate in all the calls, but I always query them asking, what challenges do you want to do, and they'll send me a list, and then I have some people that may not participate all the time, but because of that, they do participate in those work from home challenges, or certain ones that they're passionate about or they want to do. So we did some crazy TikTok ones like the no rush that was challenging, but that, you know, different people that don't normally participate actually participated. So by changing that up all the time, that really made an impact in having them participate.
Great. I think that covers between the presentation and this. I think it's covered all the questions we've had sent in. I know you've answered multiple changes. We do have one more question here from Sheena. Did you see a change in your authorization rates and performance? Great question.
Yes, so, you know, we didn't really see an impact in our authorization rates between at home and in the office. The authorization rate stayed pretty steady. As far as, you know, other performance measures, we did see people, we did see a decrease in the phone time. However, I think that probably had a lot more to do with the nature of the referrals that we were taking, because we had a large percentage and still do have a large percentage of COVID rule out deaths coming in as referrals. And so when you have that, of course, the immediate rule out takes less time. But we didn't see an impact in authorization rates. They stayed pretty steady.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay, this is gonna be the last call for questions if anybody has any. Okay, again, thank you to my friends down at Lifegift there for joining us and presenting. Fantastic job. I'm going to turn it back over to Deanna now.
All right, thank you, Matt. Well, on behalf of the Alliance, I'd like to once again thank our panel of presenters, Michelle, Kristine, Becky. Thank you so much. We're very appreciative of I can't talk today. The insights that you shared. There are a lot of great takeaways that I think we can all consider as we move forward in navigating this new normal of ours. So thank you all so much. I do also want to extend a sincere thanks to Paul Myoung, our last presenter. We apologize that he was unable to share his insights from the transplant perspective, but as Matt mentioned, we'll be sure to share his slides so you can at least review those in your own time. And should you have any questions for him specifically, I'd be happy to pass them along to him, and I'm sure he'd be willing to address them. So thank you all so much. We appreciate your patience, as we know we started a little bit late today, but we thank you all for hanging out with us, hanging on a little bit longer, and we hope that you found this presentation to be valuable. That said, we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Take care, everyone.